Well, welcome everybody. We are so delighted to have you here. This session today is going to be very interesting. Number one, because it's going to be chock full of practical, wonderful advice. We're calling today's session Six Ways Strategic Marketing Operations is Changing in 2021. And rather just have one person talking about this, we have brought some amazing people to join us. We have Julia Steed, Chief Marketing Officer at Allocadia. Julia, say hello.
Hi everyone. Happy to be
So
here today.
delighted, so delighted to have them participating. And we have Abby Ryan, who's the Global Director of Marketing Operations at SAP Concur. Say hello.
Hey,
Delighted to have both of these ladies with us. And it's going to be an interesting panel. I'm Debbie Qaqish. I'm a partner and the Chief Strategy Officer at the Pedowitz Group. And between the three of us, we will have a different perspective on what's going on in the world of marketing operations. I'll be talking a lot and sharing a lot from my book about marketing operations from backroom to boardroom, which is coming out in April. It's being published by Forbes, and also the forward is by Scott Brinker. And if anyone would like a free copy of this book, just email me, Debbie@pedowitzgroup.com, and I will put you on the list. So I'll be pulling from the research that went into creating this book, both the interviews and some additional research that was done, and kind of sharing a macro perspective. And then Julia is going to give us the perspective of the CMO who's actually living this every single day. And then Abby is going to give us that marketing operations executive perspective. So you're going to have three different perspectives that we'll be providing today. And so let's get into the very first topic. And this is one that in the pre-sessions, Julia, Abby, and I, we just really could not stop talking about this new mandate for leadership in 2021 and how to respond. So I'll begin with a perspective, and then we'll turn it over to Julia, and then we'll have some conversation with Abby. I see day in and day out across many marketing operations, three strategic elements that will define a marketing operations leader in 2021. First, they will have to move from being button pushers to business leaders. And whenever I tell a marketing operations group that they're perceived as a button pusher, it's just like I reach in and I've ripped out their heart. You know, they can't stand it because they know they can be so much more. So moving from button pusher to business leader then enables that head of marketing operations to be the wingman or the wing person that truly enables the CMO to do what she needs to do. We'll also see in 2021 that the quest for talent will continue to be a huge issue. And we'll see marketing operations leaders having to move from being hiring managers to team and skill builders. Because quite frankly, to find a purple unicorn that can be technical, analytical, be business oriented, revenue oriented, customer centric oriented, it is like trying to find a purple unicorn. So we'll see that dynamic in leadership. And finally, we'll see these marketing operations leaders and all of marketing, quite frankly, move from being a siloed manager to being a cross-functional facilitator, because marketing is no longer a sport played only by marketing. It truly is a team sport, working with IT, working with sales, working with the customer success team. More and more marketing and marketing operations in particular is having to work cross-functionally to be highly effective. So those are three things that I see that are going to be important for a strategic marketing operations leader as we move into 2021. And why don't we ask our panelists? So Julia, what are you seeing?
I definitely agree with pretty much everything you said. I wanted to touch upon the rise of the importance of cross collaboration in the role of marketing operations, and a trend that I've seen growing even more lately, I'd say in the past year or so, is the rise of, instead of just being a marketing ops leader, the rev ops leader, right? And consolidating both the strategy and the operational function of marketing and sales, and in some cases, your customer organization as well, under one leader. And at Allocadia, we've taken that approach, and I'm seeing it play out more and more across a variety of companies of different sizes. And I think at first I was against it, to be quite honest. I'm like, nope, you really need a marketing operations leader who really their core expertise is marketing, and they live and breathe marketing, and marketing is so different from sales. But I think the key to success in the role is having a rev ops leader that not necessarily has held roles in each of those departments, but can really empathize and really takes a collaborative approach to learning the needs of all the key stakeholders. And they may have deeper expertise in marketing or sales operations or customer organization operations, but they've had a lot of exposure throughout their career to the different aspects. And so they are more set up for success to be able to stitch the different pieces together and really create a highly effective and efficient and happily functioning revenue operations team. So that's something that I think will continue to evolve and we'll see become more popular.
So Julia, if we could take that topic for just one moment, I want to ask you a question, and then I would like to hear Abby's ideas around RevOps, and then we'll come back to points 2 and point 3 that you have around this question. As a CMO, Julia, how does RevOps benefit you?
How doesn't it benefit me? It's one of the most critical tools in my kit right now. And it's evolved from being a nice to have role and team that sort of keeps the lights running to really be at the forefront of a key strategic piece of how I run my overall business, how me and my colleagues run our overall business, and how I successfully run the business of marketing, you could say. There's been a lot more, I think rightly so, scrutiny around data and data hygiene and focusing your dollars on the right audiences and creating more personalized one-to-one sort of business to human experiences. And you can't do any of that without a really solid operational foundation. And it's not just the data management, but it's plugging data with customer demographics and customer information, account information. It's plugging in your investment strategy and seeing if you're spending your dollars where your audiences are and how your dollars are performing, and stitching it all together. And it's complicated, as it should be, and it takes a high level of acumen and expertise. And so, but it also makes it all work.
Yeah, one more question, and then I want to hear on this topic from Abby. RevOps reports to whom or what role in your company?
So I love my company. My company is unique in a number of ways, but we have a joint leader who runs our customer success and our sales organization. And our RevOps leader reports into her. But I have somebody on my marketing team that does marketing ops, but that works very closely. It's not like a dotted line reporting relationship, but it's a very collaborative team aspect to it.
Very collaborative.
And I was just going to say it works well because the very amazing leader we have in RevOps has in the past worked with both marketing and sales teams. And so she's bringing the perspectives of both.
And I love that you have a leader that's got both customer success and sales together. That just makes a whole lot of sense.
Well, and I just want to say one quick point, because I think it's important for this audience. I don't think a lot of people are thinking this way yet, but she's forcing us, because of the nature of her role, to expand our revenue operations to the whole customer world as well. Whereas too often the customer world is siloed off from your sales and marketing.
Exactly. World. And that is exactly what we see. Abby, what are you seeing around this combining of the ops functions?
Absolutely. I mean, both of you have made excellent points. And one of the things that I've seen in some smaller companies that I've been at is when you're moving towards that revenue operations model, you really find people who either have the skill or can build the skill to see a bit broader. I think one thing that we see in marketing and in marketing operations specifically is a lot of folks who dive really deeply into one particular topic, but maybe have their blinders on. So being able to not only remove those blinders and see what is the full impact for this person, this prospect, this customer, not just what's the experience on the one landing page, what does this email do, how is it speaking to them, but everything from that first initial interaction all the way through to their first year of being a customer. how do you understand what that life cycle looks
Yeah.
like, and what's the most
Yeah.
amount of data that you can pull back out of it,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So when I'm thinking through with my teams, and at Concur, we don't have a revenue operations function yet, but we're driving towards that kind of mindset, right? So there are two ways that we go about this. One is everybody in my team has a plan to move from a task manager to a project manager to a strategic thinker, and then from a strategic thinker to a consultant.
Love
And
that.
along these different steps, right, there are different competencies that we would see a lot around communication, a lot around critical business thinking, asking questions, leading a meeting from the front seat, and how that leads into the revenue operations is if I'm meeting with Julia, let's say Julia is my CMO, and she says to me, I need to understand what the customer journey looks like. I'm not going to say, well, they landed on this page and it was super cool. I'm going to go to all of the teams and say, what does it mean when you do this and it impacts down the road with customer success? What happens if we have to recycle someone and we want to warm them back up appropriately later on for another pass at a pitch? So it's really broadening that lens and asking more questions than I think most people are comfortable asking.
And I love that aspect of it. Absolutely. So, Julie, I think you had another point or two about leadership. If you could make those quickly, and then we'll go on to our next question.
Yeah, just in terms of what the mandate's looking like, I think there is a focus for leaders and CMOs to level up their operational excellence right now, tied in with just driving companies' recovery growth as we navigate the ongoing pandemic and the future. So a lot of leaders are being tasked to basically run more efficiently and effectively and do more with less. And I think a spin-off mandate, I guess, or competency that leaders need more than ever are being able to enable agility. So empowering their teams with the right tools and processes to have flexible plans, have flexible investment strategies, be able to pivot quickly to meet whatever happens next week, next month, and so on.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the expression level up. That's exactly what it is. And agility is just like at a whole new level now. We thought we were trying to be agile before, but post pandemic or in pandemic, we have to be even more agile. What would you add to that, Abby?
I'm just thinking more around the agility and also kind of the data-driven side of things. I know we're going to get into that a little bit more with some of the other questions, so I'll keep it brief. But what we have found is that as we need to do more with less, people tend to lean into gut reactions and things that they've seen work before. And that can bring you to a good place. But most of the time, if you make an assumption that something worked well once, it's not going to continue to work in the same way. So being able to understand at that foundational level and build appropriate analysis to really monitor how something's going is the only way to move forward.
I completely agree. All right, let's move on to our next question. And again, this is live, so we have 5 minutes for Q&A at the end. So we have someone, Ada is actually taking a look at any questions that you put into chat. But again, this is live, so we would love to have you ask some questions and we can provide some answers. Let's talk about the other thing that we're seeing is that really the core elements of operational excellence to double down on now. And the way I look at this and what I talk about in my upcoming book is that this operational excellence is the foundation for innovation and growth. You're not going to be agile. You're not going to be data driven. You're not going to be holistically thinking about the customer if you just don't have that operational excellence in place. Modern marketing organizations and CMOs are challenged in 3 key areas: digital transformation, customer centricity, and revenue. All 3 with a really big emphasis on revenue. And so that digital transformation, making sure that you've got the right MarTech stack, making sure that you're doing the right processes, and that this is both efficient, which means you're doing the right things, you're doing things well, and that you're effective doing the right things are critically important. Again, this operational excellence is the foundation for any innovation and growth for marketing. So let's begin this one with Abby. Abby, what have you seen in this area?
So when I think around the main challenges and what you've just gone through, I start thinking more about the team as well and that outbound model and how we kind of support the execution specifically. So what kind of talent do you have and what kind of capacity do you have internal to the team, and how much do you need to put towards an outsourced model, a training model, or some sort of hybrid? So one thing that we've seen a lot is, you'll come into a new company, let's say you inherit a tech stack, you inherit a process. You may have some people who are building and executing who actually their time would be better spent elsewhere. So how do you make everything much more simplified and streamlined in the way that the tools are built out and all the structure? I'm talking as nitty gritty as templates and clonable assets and using tokens and things to make that actual execution much simpler from the very core. The way that I look at it is there are a few different ways that you can set up this model. You have an in-house ops team that deals with the execution. You have in-house where the marketers who come up with, let's say, an email are doing the execution themselves. You have the outsourced model where it's folks potentially in another country who are doing the nitty-gritty data entry and that send. But all of that comes back to where do you need the most talent and how far can you stretch your dollar to make sure that you have the right people using their brain power on the right part of the process.
I would completely agree with that. And no matter what the model, operational excellence is the foundation. So Julia, tell us as the CMO what you're seeing in this area.
Yeah, I echo what Abby was saying about really digging into areas where you can maximize your efficiency and looking at what people are doing in their day-to-day and finding ways to automate and streamline. Basically, make sure that your people are spending their time on the most important things, not the sort of painstaking, laborious things. And as CMO, I think it's far too easy to sort of sit at this high level, top-down view of everything and think that I know best on where we need to tighten things up and be more efficient. But what I've actually found to be most meaningful and most helpful is just chatting one-to-one with everyone on the front lines and really picking their brains on, hey, in an average day, what are you spending the most time on? What's giving you the most headaches? If you had a magic wand, what would you, sort of whisk away and automate or outsource or whatever? And that's where I really get my best nuggets of new tools we should be implementing or things that we should just outsource. And often when they are on the front lines, they're so busy and caught up in the day-to-day that they don't necessarily feel they've got the space to raise their hand and say, hey, help me find a better solution for this, right? They don't want to be seen as saying like, I don't want to do the work or I can't do the work. And so taking the time as a leader to have a lot of those one-on-one conversations, informal, conversational, and really just understanding what their days are like and how you can help perhaps with them uncover areas that you could optimize through technology. One other quick point I wanted to make on this topic is revenue, which you touched upon, Debbie. And I think now more than ever, really nailing your ROI measurement, it just has to happen. There's a great quote that I've heard. It's the answer you seek is in the cave you do not wish to enter. And I think that applies a lot to the ROI world. Like we all want to nail that piece, but we don't want to do the work to get there. But enough, you got to just roll up your sleeves, put in the work up front to make sure your attribution and your measurement systems are all in place, that your investment is connected to performance. You got to do it now. You can't wait any longer.
And you were so right. In 2021, marketers have always had pressure for revenue. That is becoming even more intense. Roughly 80% of all CMOs have responsibility for revenue. Only about a third actually report credible revenue results. And the pressure is enormous. And you cannot get there if you do not have a foundation of operational excellence. It is impossible.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Can I add something quickly to that?
Of
Debbie,
course.
before we move on? I just want to say too, it's also really important to work with Julia, work with your CMO to make sure that they fully buy into what your plan is and what the process is. And this comes back to that foundational aspect and making the data-driven decisions. Because if I go to Julia and say, I'm going to do this thing because it seems cool, she has no reason to trust or respect that. But if there's no trust and respect for the ops team, which is often seen as a support group, often seen as not having a ton of power, often seen as saying no a lot, then you're not going to be able to get the traction that you need to move the team forward.
That's
so
right.
Just any leader on the call, definitely invest in the time to spend with your ops groups and see what's actually possible and how it will impact the pipeline.
And that's why the ops leader has to speak the language of business. Yeah. They have to take this incredible knowledge they have about technology and the data, and they have to help translate that up the line. That is incredibly important. Okay, last question. And I happen to know that this is a hotspot for both Julia and Abby. Let's talk about how to resource your marketing ops team effectively with the right people and the skill sets. And Abby alluded a little bit to this earlier. I think I interviewed around 26 executives for my book, leaders of marketing ops and also CMOs. Talent is just the bane of their existence. It's certainly in the top 2 challenges for all MO executives. And the thing about getting that marketing operations team to be all that they can be is, first you have to recognize there is a huge skill gap between what is required on a marketing ops team and what's available out in the market. And so day in and day out, I see 4 strategies. And again, Abby and Julie had alluded to these a little bit. You can definitely rent the talent. A lot of people do that. You can hire. It can be expensive. You can do internal transfers. Takes a little bit of a ramp up time. And then even hiring young millennials and Gen Zers, which I'm seeing a lot of companies like to hire, do a combination of all of these things. You typically don't do just one. You rent when you've got an immediate need and you've got to have that skill right there, right now. You can hire the top talent, or you can hire and you can bring them along, like hiring the young millennials and the Gen Zers. And then, of course, one of the best options would be internal transfers. They understand marketing, they understand the company, and if they've got the aptitude, then they could go a long way. So those are some of the things that I've seen. Let's talk about the challenge of finding the right people and getting them skilled, and then how do you find those people, Julia? What do you do?
Yeah, so my preference is to hire someone very senior and very strategic to lead the function. We've spent a lot of time today just talking about what a critical foundational piece of marketing success it is. And so I don't ever undervalue. So if I had to just have one hire, it would be someone senior, very experienced, and then they can either rent more junior talent to do some of the execution, or hire a couple of junior people on their team who can grow up underneath them. But where you will stumble, I think, is if you don't have any of that senior expertise on your team and you've got the junior people trying to figure out the strategy and the foundational pieces on their own. I like to rent talent if there's a discrete problem that I need to solve quickly that we just don't have the bandwidth in-house. So if it's a problem that has, that can sort of be time boxed within 2 months, a project, very clear guidelines and outcomes, that's the kind of stuff that I outsource to not tie up my internal resources on. And then how I go about hiring. I feel like anyone who's watching that has kids, encourage your children to go into revenue ops, or if you're in, early on in your career, there's just so much demand. Yeah. But I think part of my role as CMO in attracting good rev ops people and hiring them is showing them that I get it, that I understand their world, that I highly value them, and that they'll have a well-supported home within my marketing organization. So I do think the leaders play a big role in attracting and supporting that level of talent. It
does. The leadership makes all the difference. Abby, quick answer. And I know this is your favorite topic, so.
I know we could talk about this for hours and hours on end. Anybody listening, feel free to hit me up. We'll have a nerd out conversation. The biggest thing for me is a proactive person. We've talked about a lot of different things, moving from task manager all the way up to consultative, having that business acumen that aligns with technological, which is very difficult, but finding people who are proactive and who are curious and who want to ask questions and say, hey, Debbie, I need to know how this works, is the biggest thing for me, because that tells me that they're really excited and ready to learn, and I don't have to worry about things waffling and waiting. The one other thing that I would say here too is, again, with the agility, people who are able to work in the fluid environments. And again, if you're in this senior position and you're reporting to Julia, make sure Julia is awesome, like she clearly is, and not someone who's not really going to support the group. Because if you're managing and you're in charge of the strategic aspect of this function and you have to hire these people, you need the support to be able to make any changes that you need to up-level folks who should be up-leveled and retain that talent.
It was one of the biggest chapters in my book, talent, again, only because executives had so much to say about it. So let's go take a look at some questions that we had come in. Here's one from Roberto Rodriguez. I'm the MOPS leader in my organization. However, we've yet to commit to the development of the capability. How can I drive that awareness and growth while including the development of Rev Ops as part of the roadmap? And Julia, how would you respond to that?
I think your path to success is aligning to business outcomes. So if you are able, I would meet with whoever your marketing leader is, your CMO, or whoever the senior folks are in the organization, and ask them questions and try to understand what are their top priorities right now. And then from there, you can figure out, okay, how does MOPS help them achieve their top priorities and drive to the business outcomes that as a CMO or a VP of marketing, they are trying to achieve. So by framing your world within what they're hoping to accomplish, I think you'll be more successful in making them realize why they need you and why they should invest more in that function.
Mm-hmm.
And Abby, I'd like to hear your response on this, because I know you guys have just grown tremendously over the last 18 months.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the biggest thing is understanding, the other side of the fence, let's say. So everybody who's worked in marketing or sales knows that there tends to be a historical headbutt that goes on there. And the first step towards revenue operations is getting different folks to understand you get both sides of it, and that the end goal is the same. So where some people may explain, let's say we're talking about a lead scoring model, they may explain a lead scoring model in terms of here's why it's great for the marketers. But in actuality, if you want sales to believe it and buy into it, you need to explain it to them in their terms, meaning you're going to get more dollars in your pocket, because if I send you better leads and you give me feedback, then you're going to have more demos, you're going to bring more pipeline and get higher comps. So it's really starting to ask those questions and speaking in the language of the people you're trying to get on board. And it really does all come back to pipeline.
It's the language of business, and you have to show how you can make a business outcome. Let's take a look we have time for one more question. For us young millennial marketers out there at orgs that are looking to build a RevOps team, what can you recommend for us to get in front of the RevOps curve? Continue to be curious, ensure our team is a valuable tool for our CMO. I'll give a little response to this, and then I definitely want to hear from Julia and Abby as well. There's so much, there are many articles out right now around revenue operations, and it can have a lot of different structures. But at the end of the day, what RevOps gives you that you don't have before, number one, is a clear line of sight to the entire customer lifecycle. Nothing is more valuable than that. So marketing can then turn their incredible power to the entire customer life cycle, not just working on, getting net new leads. It also is the only way to create that one line of sight between sales, marketing, and also the customer success team. So there are a lot of articles out there about RevOps, and to me, it is just the natural evolution and where things are going. Julia?
I'd say read Debbie's book. This is probably, that's my short answer. I'm going to let Abby explain this one too, because she's probably got more ideas on it than I do. But I think like reading and I honestly think Debbie's book is amazing and is for forward-thinking RevOps leaders.
Yep, I absolutely would echo that and read it, especially because Julia and I are in it. But, what I would say especially is, aside from webinars like this, which clearly you're on right now, and doing as much research as you can, a big thing is the network. Something that's worked really well for me and essentially been the slingshot in my career is I've built a library in my mind of all of the different ways I've heard of people doing things. So if you go to the MarTech East conference and you sit at one of the lunch tables and someone says, this is how we do things, don't just like listen and let it go one out the other ear. Really add that to the back of your brain, because if you can start to build that muscle of connecting the different pieces, connecting the dots and saying, hey, I know this one person did it one way, I bet that would work in this instance, then you're going to be a star in 5 minutes.
Yep. So here are a few resources for you. We intentionally made this webinar short. We wanted to be very respectful of everybody's time. I want to thank Abby. I want to thank Julia for partnering with us and providing just incredible insights. And everyone has to come to this. This is also being put on by Allocadia. They have a comedian. How much fun. Get a drink and join them for this funny way, a toast and a roast, an ode to marketing in 2020, December the 8th. And with that, again, thank you, everybody. I hope you have a wonderful holiday. And 2021, I believe, is going to be the best year of marketing ever. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thanks.